What's up, guys? I'm going to be talking about the Monday card as briefly as possible. And even though I've commented on the Monday Night Football game already, I commented on it a little bit in my NFL game. Well, and I guess I will also point out NFL did not go great today. 1-1-1, I believe, is what happened in the NFL. Green Bay Packers, maybe I should just never bet them again. That was just awful. It was never a question that they were just going to lose that game. That sucked. The other two both should have been wins. Carolina Panthers, congratulations to them. They get their first win of the season and win me money in the process. So that was good. Got that little extra money line cash there. Like seeing that. Thank you to Carolina. Or maybe thank you to Houston for not playing well. Either way, got that one right. And I'm fairly confident that my analysis on the Washington game was correct. I don't know if you saw that game, but I was losing my shit. There was so much bullshit involved in that result. Unbelievable. Washington was covering the whole game up into the fourth quarter, like halfway through the fourth quarter. They've been covering the whole way. It looked like it was going to be a wire-to-wire cover. At least I'm pretty sure they were covering the whole way. I took the 7, by the way. I had mentioned I gave it out at 6.5 on my show, but I had mentioned that if you wait, it might hit 7, which is what I did, and it did hit 7. So that happened. So I was on a 7. So luckily for me, I wound up getting a push on it. Hopefully, hopefully you didn't lose on the 6.5, because that's just an absolutely brutal way to lose. Philadelphia had no business covering that. They had no business winning that game at all, let alone covering it. Absolutely ridiculous. So Washington was, I believe, covering the entire way up into like with 8 minutes left to go in the entire game. They were winning by 7 at that point, and you got them at plus a touchdown basically in your pocket. It's like, yeah, this is going pretty well. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, well, I guess what could possibly go wrong is Washington's offensive line, which had been pretty good up until that point, and somehow for the league's worst offensive line, they hadn't allowed any sacks. I guess because Philadelphia, as I said they would be, they were kind of in a down spot, in a pretty bad sandwich spot between that huge Sunday night win over the Miami Dolphins and with Dallas coming up next. Massive look-ahead spot there as well, and having already beaten Washington before, even though it was close. So Washington's horrific offensive line finally started blowing the game for them, basically, and being Washington's offensive line. Sam Howell started being Sam Howell, and you had him. Well, first of all, I guess they gave up a tying touchdown. Then Washington had possession again. Sam Howell, what does he do? Oh, he starts, the offensive line starts failing and putting him under pressure, and he throws a pick within his own 20, and it gets run back to like the Washington 9. Washington's defense, which isn't that horrible, doesn't stop the Eagles. The Eagles score a touchdown. Now all of a sudden the Eagles are up 7, and my bet is pushing. Then Washington has another drive where this was absolute bullshit, complete bullshit, especially when it was in Washington. You kind of don't expect this to happen. Washington, I believe it was on a 3rd and 10 play. They got it complete. It was either on 3rd down or 4th down, because this pretty much ended the drive for them when it absolutely should not. And maybe it was a 4th down play. I don't even know. You can check me on this, but you guys know what I'm talking about if you saw the game. They completed a pretty long pass, which was going to give them the first down. It was ruled incomplete on the field. On replay, you could clearly see the receiver. The ball never hit the ground. The receiver bobbled it, but he came up with the ball. The ball never hit the ground, and the receiver wound up with the ball. So it is a completion. It was with 2:05 left in the game. So Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, which I don't think this was any type of riverboat gambling to challenge that play, because you have to at that point. You're going to lose possession if you let that horrific call stand. He correctly challenges. It goes to the booth. The commentators are saying, yeah, this is probably going to get overturned. Like, this looks like it's a completed catch. It did not hit the ground. There's clear evidence it did not hit the ground. The ruling on the field was horrific, which sets up a horrible situation in the NFL because they need conclusive evidence to overturn it. But in this case, there was conclusive evidence to overturn it. What do? No, they still come out. I don't know if the Eagles are paying off the refs or what, but the refs come out. No, the call stands. Play stands is called. Washington loses a timeout. They lose possession. And pretty much game over at that point. Philly gets possession of the ball. That was on fourth down, actually. Yeah, definitely, because Philly took over at Washington's 20. So back-to-back drives, Philly starts in the red zone, and they score another touchdown. And now all of a sudden, in about 30 seconds, the game goes from being tied to Philly being up 14. And it was in maybe a 1 or 2 minute span. It was a 21-point swing in the game from Washington being up 7 to being down 14. And then Washington actually scored a garbage touchdown again at the end to push the number for me, which at least thanks for that, I guess. But there's no way that Washington should have not covered that game. They should have won that game outright. They won the game. At least last I saw, I looked very close to the end of the game. They won the game in every single statistic. They won in total yardage, first downs, time of possession, won the turnover battle. If you don't include that turnover and downs, I guess, on that bad call at the end, near the end there that I just talked about. Absolutely ridiculous. When you win the game in all those categories and you don't even cover a big underdog number, it's just absolutely insane, man. They absolutely were the right side. They should have covered. I got the push at least, thankfully, because I got the key number. Whatever. That was the situation. And then the Atlanta Hawks, thank you to the Atlanta Hawks, blew out the Bucks tonight. So I got a nice not only win, but money line cash on that. So there you go with that one. So that was awesome. So winning day, nice turnaround there because of the Hawks. So thank you for that. We move on. Monday night, as I said, I already talked about it on my NFL video, but it's the Chicago Bears at the Detroit, or sorry, not the Chicago Bears. I get them confused because they both suck so bad. The Chicago Bears got blown out tonight. Not the Chicago Bears, the Las Vegas. I don't even know where they are now. The Las Vegas Raiders. They might not even be there much longer because they suck so bad. The Raiders the Raiders are the team that got blown out by the Bears last week. There you go. That's why I'm confused. It's the Raiders at the Lions on Monday night. This is a mismatch. Usually I don't like to look at larger favorites where you got the Lions are, of course, the big favorite here. They were in the 8 range, but it's actually dropped a little bit to 7.5 for whatever reason. But they got 91% of the cash, although 86% of the tickets. So it looks like the Lions are public, but it looks like more of the money than the tickets are on them is on them as well. So it looks like the Lions are both public and kind of sharp, I guess. One of those weird situations where I don't really want to take the public team, and I don't think you can find that much value in a public team like that, but I would kind of only look to the Lions here, not just because the Raiders have looked like a complete disaster and they've been struggling horribly recently. That, if anything, would make me want to look to take the Raiders, because I think that they'd be severely undervalued, but I think maybe that's not the case here because Detroit themselves are coming off a bad blowout loss, even though it was to a good team in the Ravens. They got absolutely annihilated. So they're coming off that. They're kind of in a bounce back situation. They get to play a primetime game, which Detroit doesn't get too many primetime games with the way they've been playing recently. I think that they'll probably show up for it because it's prime time, because they're off an ugly loss, even though the Raiders are also off an ugly loss. I'm not going to trust Josh McDaniels, really, when everything else seems like kind of a toss-up as far as the situation is concerned. I would lean slightly to the Lions there still, which is what I said on my video. I don't know if anything will change as far as that's concerned. NHL, I'm not going to even talk about. There is an NHL slate tomorrow with a decent amount of games that I looked through the card, and there's just nothing that even really tempts me. So nothing that I even think I should comment on, really. MLB, we do have the World Series. I actually haven't looked potentially playing this game, really. I don't know if I will. I probably won't, but I can comment on it briefly. We got game 3 as it shifts to Arizona. As Arizona had game 1 ripped away from them in the final innings. They were winning the game most of the way, really, and had the lead in the 9th inning, wound up losing it in extra innings. Brutal way to lose, but they were able to turn around, bounce back, and win in a blowout in game 2, 9-1 Arizona in game 2, which is kind of crazy, really. Game 3, we got the game in Arizona. It's going to be Scherzer at Pfaadt in this matchup. What we have for Scherzer is he's done pretty well in his career against the Diamondbacks, which are his former team, in fact. He's faced their current hitters 103 at-bats worth, and they've hit they're 16 for 103 off of him, man. A 155 opponent batting average. Totally insane. 39 strikeouts, 8 walks. Scherzer has had their number. He has completely dominated. He's completely dominated the Rangers hitters statistically. So that's good news for him. And of course, he had the much better season numbers than Pfaadt as well, with a 3.77 ERA, 1.12 WHIP. Pfaadt 5.72 ERA in the season, 1.41 WHIP, which are awful statistics. He's been decent in the playoffs, though. He's been all right. A 22-3 strikeout walk ratio has been quite good, although he hasn't gone too deep into some of these games that he's pitched. But his stats against Texas, although in limited playing time, Texas's hitters have beat him up. Only 19 at bats, but they're 9 for 19 off of him. So that's a 474 opponent batting average and 4 home runs and 19 at bats off of him, with Young or Jung hitting 2 of them. But I don't know. So maybe the home runs skew those numbers a little bit, but still, he's been roughed up by them. So starting pitching wise, Scherzer has a huge advantage starting pitching wise. Although if you look at the market, it looks like Texas, even though they've ticked up maybe from minus 105 to minus 106 as the road money line favorite, they have 54% of the tickets, but 77% of the cash is on the Diamondbacks. And then that just confuses me, because I don't think I wouldn't be able to play the Diamondbacks looking at that pitching matchup, even though you could argue that Texas hasn't seen Pfaadt that much. That might be a slight advantage to him, but his history against them in that limited playing time is awful, and Scherzer's history against the Diamondbacks hitters is excellent, and their stats on the season were totally lopsided as well. So I would not want to play Pfaadt against Scherzer there. And as far as the total goes, it looks like it's ticked down from 9 to under 9 at minus 112. And it looks like 57% of the tickets are on the over, but 59% of the cash on the under. So it does look like there might be a little bit of money playing the under as well. I don't really have a feel for the total there. But as far as the side, yeah, the market and the pitching matchup look like they're in total conflict with each other, because the pitching matchup looks like it strongly favors Scherzer. And it looks like the market is completely disagreeing with that. So I don't totally understand that, because, again, I would not want to play Pfaadt against Scherzer with numbers historically that look like that. Like, I would just stay away. So that's probably what I'm going to do. In the NBA, where I am actually going to have one play, I might be able to comment on a couple of these games quickly as well, because there are some games where I have at least like leans, I would say. I do lean to the T-Wolves against the Hawks, even though they're both coming off of big wins. The T-Wolves have actually shot up from -1 to -2.5, somewhere in that range on the road. So I would play it before it gets that much higher if you want to play it. I don't see real money and ticket percentages on this yet, so I can't really comment as far as what's going on there, but it looks like the money is moving the line up on the T-Wolves, and I think I agree with it, because even though both teams are kind of coming off big wins, the T-Wolves beat and I won on both of those games. The T-Wolves beat the Heat last night, which I won on, and that was a bad spot for the Heat, but the Hawks won on the road tonight at Milwaukee in a blowout win, which I also won on. So I think the Hawks are the team that's in the worst spot, even though you could argue they might both be in letdown spots, which is kind of the thing that's going to keep me off it a little bit. But the Hawks are playing a back-to-back, a third game in 4 nights, and they had to make that trip to Milwaukee for that one game where they really went all out and played a very solid, complete game, winning basically wire to wire, dominant win. And now with no time off, they have to come back home again. So I think it's a pretty bad spot for the Hawks, I would say. Worse than it is for the T-Wolves. So that's the only way I would look there, even though the T-Wolves, as I might mention briefly in a second, have a kind of a big look ahead to the Denver Nuggets, I believe, up next as far as that's concerned. In the Heat-Bucks game, the Bucks, even though they did play tonight, they basically didn't even show up for the game. And as I mentioned in my analysis for that game, I thought they might be looking ahead to the game that's happening next against Miami. So this is why I lean the Bucks in this one, even though they are on no rest. They played such a bad game tonight that I think that the no rest, you can kind of throw it out the window a little bit. I think the Bucks probably just let that game slip because they were going to be focused more on this game because this is a much, much bigger game, which is why I went against the Bucks tonight. The Heat have that one day off, and yes, they are coming off that loss I just mentioned to the T-Wolves. All these teams getting mentioned one after the other here. So the Heat might be also kind of in a bounce back spot, and with an extra day off. So those are the things that keep me off of this just slightly, but I lean to the Bucks here. And the number looks like it's gone down from -7 to -5 at home on the Bucks, which I actually think is value. I don't see ticket and money percentages yet on this, but I think it's possibly a situation where the Heat might actually get some of the public action, even though everybody knows the Bucks are a good team. People see the Heat as a good team as well, and the Heat eliminated the Bucks from the playoffs last year in 5 games. I think they kind of they got by them fairly easily, so people might remember that, and they might see this line as being a little bit big and think that there's value in taking those points with the Heat here, expecting a competitive game. But I think the Bucks, and after what they saw with the Bucks tonight, not playing well at all against Atlanta, but I think the Bucks, they're in a much better spot, I would say, than even though they have no rest. I think they're in the better spot. They're in a spot where I think they're going to be completely focused because this is going to be the one revenge scenario that actually kind of matters in the NBA and sports like this, where this is the team that just eliminated you from the playoffs just a few months ago. You have a chance at avenging that in a way against them. This is going to be that elimination revenge spot, man. The Bucks are probably going to be angry. They're probably going to want to come out and beat this Heat team and show them who the better team really was. And remember that the Bucks had some injury issues during that series last year, and Giannis missed half of that series. I think I don't think he played. I think he only played 1 or 2 games in that series. People might forget that, so they might overvalue the Heat a little bit, thinking, hey, the Heat were able to beat them in that series, so they should be able to cover as an underdog here, but not so fast, because if the Bucks, I'm assuming Giannis is playing, whatever. If the Bucks are more healthy than they were then, I think that's clearly also an advantage to them. So I like the Bucks there. I think they have a heavy motivational angle with that revenge. But the one play that I'm actually going to be making is going to be on the Utah Jazz plus 8.5 at the Denver Nuggets. Looks like the Nuggets have actually gone down from 10 to 8.5. I don't know that the 10 was really there that long, but that tells me there might be some movement because there is some money on the Jazz here. And I think I might know why that's the case. Well, I hope I know why that's the case because I'm taking it. So we have couple of situations here where Denver, I think, is in a bad situation. They're in a back-to-back, but I think they're in the worst rest situation maybe on the entire NBA slate because they're playing a 4th game in 6 days, and they're playing they had 2 days off. Never mind. So it's 4 and 7. So scratch that. But they are playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all in different cities, and they won all those games. So far they beat the Lakers, Memphis, and Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City had a decent start to the season, and they blew Oklahoma City out by 30-something points, man. So they're coming off that win tonight, and they have to turn around and play again, coming back home into elevation with no time off. So they're coming off that decent stretch of games, and it's kind of a road trip return as well, even though it's a short road trip. You have all those factors kind of coming in that are all negatives for Denver. You got no rest, really, the bad rest spot, the third game in 4 nights, even with all that travel, all in different cities, and having to return home with no time off. And they have Minnesota and then Dallas up next. And Minnesota, who remembers, a playoff team last year. And Dallas might be considered to be a better team as well. Utah didn't really do much last year, so they might be flying a little bit under the radar, and they have not had that good of a start to this season either. So Denver is off a good start to the season. They beat 2 of last year's playoff teams in LA and Memphis, and then they crushed Oklahoma City, where you would think that maybe coming off that Memphis game, Denver might show up, maybe not totally focused for Oklahoma City, but they wrecked Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City, I think, had been playing pretty well to start the season before that. So Utah, on the other hand, has a day off. They're remaining on the road. They started the road trip in Phoenix, coming off a win, but that was the back-to-back for them. So that actually for them was a third game in 4 nights. So maybe that was not a great spot for Utah, because they were coming off beating the Clippers as a home underdog, and a nice win there for Utah to get their first win of the season. And then immediately they had to turn around and go to Phoenix, who we know is a pretty good team, playoff team from last year, has a bunch of stars on their team, and they got blown out in that game by 20-something points. Now they have a day's rest. They go into Denver. They have extra rest compared to what Denver has. Denver's got no turnaround time here and is having to return home. I think the spot sets up as a much better spot for Utah. Denver, of course, are the returning champs here. So pretty much all their opponents are going to be focused on, and they kind of have a target on their back for that reason. And they're going to be kind of overvalued in a way for that reason. So you got Denver as the 8-point favorite here, and Utah getting all those extra points. I think it's value. I like it. I'm on Utah plus 8.5. And that is going to be it, man. Have a good Monday. Peace.